A sportswear idea can look perfect on Instagram. You can see some of your favorite brands across the world crushing it with their new collections, and you instantly think to yourself, this could work in my market. The truth is a little bit more nuanced because the customer, ultimately the climate, the sport, the tradition, and the culture play a huge role in how a product is perceived. Just because a product performs well in Shanghai, in Tokyo, in Paris, in New York, may not necessarily mean that that product will translate into the same consumer adoption in your market. What you need to look at as a sportswear brand owner is to take inspiration from global trends to try to understand where the market is heading, but also to apply a local and a cultural lens over what you're viewing in order to translate that vision into something that's applicable to your market. You need to think of things like climate, cultural, social acceptance, and a variety of other factors that allow you to take the best of what you see on the trending brands and be able to effectively apply that towards your local market. So in today's episode, we'll be going through what are the key things that you need to consider when taking a international product and how to translate that into a form and a version that effectively works in your local market. What to do and what not to do. So if you've struggled with building a local brand within your region and your area, and you're looking to take things to the next level and create things that are currently and culturally acceptable, this is going to be the episode for you. My name is Shadi. I'm the co-founder and creative director of FittDesign, and over the last 10 years, we've worked with thousands of sportswear brands to go from an idea to a physical product, and I know a thing or two about what it takes to work with international brands from all over the world. First thing that we need to understand is that your customer's sport changes the product. And not all sports that operate globally operate in all markets. So in the US, American football may be a much more popular sport than in Europe. Ultimately, this means that that idea of a sports performance brand that's catered towards an American football market and aesthetic wouldn't work well in Europe, despite the popularity of American football in the US. So the type of sport that your customer plays, and most regularly does, plays a huge impact. Even if you look at different markets that both play paddle. In some regions, paddle is played indoors in air-conditioned environments, specifically because it gets way too hot. For those kinds of markets like Qatar, Dubai, a lot of the GCC regions where they have the effectiveness and the budget to create indoor air-conditioned stadiums and actual pitches, is going to be very different than something like Madrid, where you're going to get a much more outdoor or open air feel, where during winter you're going to require different products and during summer you're going to require different products. Same sport but different climate, requiring a different type of material, different type of cut, construction, so on and so forth. So the lesson here is to actually map your products to the type of sport and the environment in which your customer actually plays in. So asking yourself, what sport is this product really for? If my market tend to go much heavier on the bodybuilding aesthetic side of the gym, then products like stringers, which may be a little bit more revealing, would be better off versus traditional athletic cut performance t-shirts. If my market tends to play my athletic or my racket sports indoor, then thinner fabrics may not work as well. You need more breathable and you need more suitable fabrics for those markets. You need to also ask what activity happens locally. So is this a type of product or type of activity that has a lot of social influence where people get together to play in large groups, or is it more of a one-on-one 2v2 kind of situation? Because in this case, the community aspect will be pushed harder and harder. Number two is that climate can make a good product ultimately feel wrong. And climate is the easiest way where global inspiration for a product instantly fails. A product can be excellent in one market where the climate is suitable for that kind of product and can completely fall flat on its face in another market. For example, if you're selling in a hot market, going for sort of thick, oversized garments that have a lot of fabric with them may not work, just because that may work in the colder climates or more varied climates of the US. That may not necessarily work in the GCC. You might need a similar silhouette of garment but with a thinner fabric. If you're selling in a colder climate, you're going to opt for a lot more thermal insulation, layers, and outerwear compatibility to your product because you know that your product is going to be worn in layers. If you're selling in a sunny market, going for lightweight, breathable, thin, and UV repellent garments is going to be key. So you as a founder need to ultimately ask yourself, not does this look premium, but if my customer will wear this in their current climate, will they feel good and will they perform better? And a global mood board will not answer that for you because it doesn't take into coincidence or it doesn't take into aspect the specifics of that region. So when choosing fabric based on the local environment and local wear, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Will my customer overheat in this type of fabric? Is this a fabric that's going to show sweat too fast? Is this going to be a color that's going to survive the local dust? And let's just say you live in a more dusty climate. Is this a product that can be worn indoors and outdoors, or is it specifically for a specific type of scenario? Number 3 is that local culture actually defines what is wearable and what is not wearable. This is where a lot of sportswear founders, when they are copying from external cultures, usually get caught. They may look at a product, they may like the silhouette, they may like the color, they may like the performance or the styling direction, but they don't understand that specific things do not translate culturally or are socially acceptable in different cultures. They are judged differently in different cultures depending on the kind of foundation of that culture. In some markets, customers may want to have body hugging activewear, in some markets they may not. In some markets, more coverage is preferred, and in some markets, it's totally acceptable to have less coverage. Some customers may want bold logos and they're very, very reliant on brand identity and brand associations, but others may prefer more quiet branding where you don't want to stand out as much. Some markets may accept very cropped shirts that show more skin, and some markets will want longer fits that allow for layering and allow for more modesty. Some customers will want brighter colors where they're able again to stand out, and then some customers will want colors that are more versatile and easier to wear in public. In this case, this is why a country like China, for example, is extremely useful. Reuters actually reported that some premium sportswear brands like Lululemon, On, Hoka actually benefited from Chinese consumers using sports as a part of identity, where whether they went for yoga, hiking, running, frisbee, all of this signified to people who you were and what it said about you. So your clothing then became an extended part of that identity, especially in Chinese culture. So customers are always asking in this case, does this brand fit the way people like me live on my day-to-day basis? Does this product feel acceptable in my environment? Will I be judged by my competition or by the people around me? Does this feel current here or does it feel outdated? Would I feel confident wearing this around my friends and family and the people whose opinions I trust and I want? Number 4 is that local price expectations can also significantly change what feels worth it. A product can be well designed, it can have great fabric, it can fit perfectly, but unfortunately price itself doesn't exist in a vacuum. We need to look at the local market that that product is operating in and also look at the socioeconomics of that market. If you're operating in a market where the GDP per capita is much higher, they may be a lot less price sensitive, especially if they're used to importing goods from the outside where there's little sort of non-imported goods that are competitive on price. These are markets like the US, Europe, for example, the US being the best example of this. A founder might look at a US premium activewear brand selling leggings for 110, 150 USD, and then think that this is the market price for a premium legging. But then in their own region, not taking into account the specifics of their consumer and not allowing the fact that customers may be operating at a lower threshold for what they're looking for. They might be comparing your product to local gym wear, to fast fashion activewear, to mass market brands like Decathlon, or international outlet pricing for some of the bigger brands like Adidas or Nike. This means that the same price can feel normal in one market, but overpriced or out of value in another. So the lesson here is in one sentence, is that you cannot import a premium price without giving a premium reason. And that reason has to make sense locally for the culture that you're operating in. If the local customer doesn't understand why your product is priced at a specific point, they are already writing it off in their heads and they're comparing it to the local market and what's available. Just saying something is premium alone without justifying it within the context of the person that's buying it isn't key, because you can have the same two products, but for one customer, it's so much more worth it because it's hyper tailored to what they want versus another customer where the unique selling points and the positioning of that product may not speak to them because that story hasn't gotten to them. So ultimately, before you price, you need to ask yourself, what does the local customer already pay for this category? What are the local brands that this customer is comparing me against? Does my product already explain culturally in a relevant way why it costs more? And are the duties, the shipping, and the taxes of the final price harder to justify? And is the customer just buying for performance, or are they buying for something else? Are they buying for status? Are they buying for identity? Are they buying for convenience? Last but not least is that local execution will always beat international copying. This is probably the most important part here, because localizing doesn't just mean changing one colorway or adding a specific graphic that makes that product culturally relevant to the market that you're operating in. Real localization operates in changing the product fit, the timing, the assortment, the retail experience, the online experience, and the messaging based on the market itself. And Reuters also gave a very good example of Adidas in China. After 5 straight quarters of decline in their sales, Adidas actually began to trend upwards by creating unique products that were only tailored and only available in the Chinese market to match and to tailor to consumer demands in China. This is the power of creating tailored products, even for an international global brand where a one-size-fits-all solution doesn't necessarily work all the time. That's the difference between local styling and local strategy. Changing one graphic is not enough. Adidas, in this case, changed product cycles. They had a local design share to the people that were there. They also opted for more specifically fitted apparel for the consumers in that region, given that Asian market tends to have slightly smaller sizing than the US market. And this goes way deeper than just the standard. For founders, the lesson here is going to be very simple. If you're inspired by global brands, do not copy the final product. Ask yourself, why does that product work in that market? What is the customer behavior that this product is solving? What part of this is universal and what part of this is local? And what would need to change for my specific customer? So for example, a running brand in London may work perfectly, but in your market, you might need lighter fabric. You may need a longer inseam. You may need stronger sweat control, or a gym t-shirt in LA might inspire you, but the customer may prefer less crop or less loud graphics. A women's set in Korea, again, might inspire you, but your market may need more coverage. It may need more different color confidence given the local skin tones, and a styling path that makes that product feel more wearable in your region. This is how you translate, not just copy. So before you design your next sportswear product and you take inspiration from the international market, ask yourself, what sport and activities does my customer actually do? What climate is my customer actually wearing this product in? What culture are they actually dressing inside? What price do they actually believe and set as the standard? What proof do they need before they trust this product? And if you want help taking your idea for an international brand and localizing it for your consumer base, you can check the link in the description to apply to work with us, and we will literally get back to you within 5 minutes of what it would take to create a phenomenal product that's tailored to your region and to get you a physical sample of the product in your hands within 30 days. And guys, I say this from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fit Design TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.